Hello. So today, I am going to be telling some scary stories. I don't know these stories by heart, so I'm going to be reading them, but making them as suspenseful and spooky as possible. Okay. So the first one is called Creak. Creak. A sound faint, distant, but still heard. Crack. Something snapping or being trampled on. The man sits in his room, reading. The room is silent, except for the quiet fire burning. Creak. Just the house settling. Nothing more. Crack. Perhaps some small animals outdoors. Whoosh. Is that the wind? The man stands up and peeks out the window. A clear night is all he sees. The full moon brilliant in the sky, laughing at his nervousness, he returns to his book. Creak. The man now silently chuckles at the sound. Crack. How could he have been scared of some sounds? Whoosh. Must be breezy out tonight. Thump. Did that come from within the house? The man stares into the fire, trying to calm his jangled nerves. Creak. Crack. Whoosh. Will the sounds ever cease? Thump. 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 Closer, he thinks. The sounds are getting closer. He shuts the book and closes his eyes and thinks of something besides his wild imagination. Creak. Thump. Crack. Thump. Whoosh. Thump. 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 A pause? The man moves quietly, slowly towards the door with a nervous gait. Thump. A step back. Thump. Yes, it's getting closer. Thump. He stares at the door, trying to somehow see through it. Thump. He reaches slowly for the doorknob, hand shaking, no longer able to take, not knowing. Creak. The loose floorboard near the door outside. Thump. He slowly opens the door. A scream! Silence. So that was the first story. Pretty scary, I know. The next one is a story called Axe Murder Hollow. Susan and Ned were driving through a wooded, empty section of highway. Lightning flashed. Thunder roared. The sky went dark in the torrential downpour. We'd better stop, said Susan. Ned nodded in his head in agreement. He stepped on the brake, and suddenly the car started to slide on the slick pavement. They plunged off the road and slid to a halt at the bottom of an incline. Pale and shaking, Ned quickly turned to check to see if Susan was all right. When she nodded, Ned relaxed and looked through the rain-soaked windows. I'm going to see how bad it is, he told Susan, and went out into the storm. She saw his blurry figure in the headlight, walking around the front of the car. A moment later, he jumped in beside her, soaking wet. The car's not badly damaged, but we're wheel deep in the mud, he said. I'm going to have to go for help. Susan swallowed nervously. There would be no quick rescue here. He told her to turn off the headlights and lock the doors until he returned. Axe Murder Hollow. Although Ned hadn't said the name out loud, they both knew what he had been thinking when he told her to lock the car. This was the place where a man had once taken an axe and hacked his wife to death in jealous rage over an alleged affair. Supposedly, the axe-wielding spirit of the husband continued to haunt this section of the road. Outside the car, Susan heard a shriek, a loud thump, and a strange gurgling noise, but she couldn't see anything in the darkness. Frightened, she shrank down into her seat. She sat in silence for a while, and then she noticed another sound. Bump, bump, bump. It was a soft sound, like something being blown by the wind. Suddenly, the car was illuminated by a bright light. An official-sounding voice told her to get out of the car. Ned must have found a police officer. Susan unlocked the door and stepped out of the car. As her eyes adjusted to the bright light, she saw it. Hanging by his feet from the tree next to the car was the dead body of Ned. His bloody throat had been cut so deeply that he was nearly decapitated. The wind swung his corpse back and forth so that it thumped against the tree. Bump, bump, bump. Susan screamed and ran toward the voice in the light. As she drew close, she realized the light was not coming from a flashlight. Standing there was a glowing figure of a man with a smile on his face and a large, solid, and definitely real axe in his hands. She backed away from the glowing figure until she bumped into the car. "Playing around when my back was turned?" the ghost whispered, stroking the sharp blade of the axe with his fingers. "You've been very naughty." The last thing she saw was the glint of the axe blade in the eerie, incandescent light. Ooh.